Hi friends, welcome to my English channel. Today we're diving into the world of English prepositions. This big class is all about helping you understand them better. If you're still figuring out prepositions or just want to sharpen your skills, you're in the right place. We're going to explore common mistakes, tricky parts, and by the end, you'll be a pro at using prepositions. So, let's jump in and make prepositions a piece of cake for you. Today, we're going to talk about the most common prepositions at, in, and on. So, let's do a quick quiz. He lives a brewery's long street, and you have to select either in, on, or at. I'm visiting my grandma brewery, a hospital. I like traveling where a train. Now you're going to get the right answers at the end of this video, but make sure you write your answers down so you can check yourself later. Now let's talk about some rules. The first rule is when we use at. At is used with a very exact place. Think small buildings or something that is small. You would always use at for the door, at the hospital, at school, at the university, at the table, at the door. So something specific would always be at. But when you're thinking about big things like Panama, Guatemala, St. Petersburg, or London, you would never say at because at only applies to smaller things. London, Panama, Guatemala, those are huge geographical locations. So you can be in London, but you're at the desk, at home, at my studio, at the bus stop, etc. At this university, at the door, that's cool. We use on with streets and avenues. I live on Park Avenue, on North Avenue. I live on Green Street. So, on is always used with the street. But please remember there are always exceptions. Like, if you're talking about a university and you're talking about campus, you say, I live on campus. On campus is this location where you have your dorms, your classes, your restaurants, cafeterias, etc. So, on campus would be an exception. But normally on is only used with streets. Now, when we're talking about the street, there is another thing to remember. When we have a number, then we use at. I live at 13 Green Street at 45 Dunstan Street. But when we don't have a number, like I'm asking you, where are you right now? And you're answering, I'm on Market Street. You don't give me a number, and then you use on Green Street. So, at is used when we give the full address, street number, etc. On is used when we just mention the street. And when we talk about something bigger than the street, we use the preposition in. So, for example, you have different parts of town. We are having lunch in Chinatown, or we are having lunch in Nob Hill. This is like a district here in San Francisco with cities, as I already mentioned. I live in London. I live in New York. You live in New York. We have been in New York for 2 weeks. We are in Los Angeles Hills with states. I live in California, live in California. With parts of countries, my friend spent vacation in the south of India. With countries, I used to live in Russia, With continents, my sister is in Africa. I love being in Africa. So to sum things up, we use at with specific locations, on with less specific locations like streets, and in with bigger locations like cities, towns, countries, parts of countries. If you're already overwhelmed, you're like, Ariel, how do I learn this? It takes time, guys. I've been learning English since I was 7. Well, I started when I was 4, but I became serious about English when I was 7, and it's still a process, right? The thing is, first of all, enjoy the process. The second thing is start using English as early as you can. Don't pay attention to your mistakes. Don't pay attention to your accent because this is a tool and no one's perfect. As always, a quick recommendation of a product that we've created with my team at LinguaTrip, with professional teachers who are native speakers. One of my favorite teachers, Bia, who's also an accredited English language teacher and who's been teaching English here in the U.S., we have a handbook called Grammar is All You Need that includes essential grammar topics for learners who want to reach the advanced level of English. This book has a chapter on prepositions with all the information that you need. I think it's really good to have this resource always with you so you can check whether you're saying something correctly, or if you have a question, always go there and check it. Now, let's move a little further with our prepositions. I gave you some basic rules, but now we're going to explore more examples. In is also used when we are talking about an enclosed space, something that has a roof, something that has walls, in a car, in a box, in a building. I am waiting for you in my car. They're in a car. Can you please help me find a pen in this box? In a box. Don't put your wallet in a pocket. Now listen carefully. Right now, we're moving to on. We use on with the bus. On a bus. And you might ask, Ariel, but why in a car? But on a bus? Wait a minute. I'm going to explain. The other words that we use on with are words that represent surfaces, like this table is a surface, on a table. Your floor is a surface, on the floor. The wall behind me is also a surface, on the wall. We also use on when we talk about left and right, on the left, on the right, or vice versa, depending on whatever you see. I think it's on the left for you. You're on the right for me. Next to or along the side of a river, for example. Cambridge is on the River Cam. Now, the interesting part, why in a car but on a bus? In is used with means of transportation where you can't stand up. Oh my God, English, you're so complicated. So you can't stand up in a car, so you say in a car. You can't stand up in a helicopter, but you can stand up on an airplane. So, on an airplane, in a helicopter, on a bus, in a car, on the bus, in a car, in a taxi. Because you can't stand up in a taxi. I know, guys. This is why I recommend having something like a grammar book so you can refer to things or at least have a script of this video in front of your eyes. On a ship, on a boat, on a plane, on a train. We use on with a means of transport where we can stand up. We can stand up on a plane. We can stand up on a bus. We can stand up on a boat. And also, maybe another hint, we use on with a means of transportation where there is no roof. On a horse, on a boat. A boat doesn't have a roof. Normally, you can have both, but on a boat. So, normally, you don't have a roof on top of you when you're on the upper deck. On a bike, you can't really stand up on a bike, but it doesn't have a roof. So, it's on a bike, on your bike, on a boat. Another thing that can be super confusing for you guys, sometimes you hear in a hospital and sometimes you hear at a hospital. Both of those are grammatically correct, but guess what? They have different meanings. So when you're saying, I'm in a hospital, that means you're a patient. You're actually receiving treatment. I don't remember the accident. I just remember waking up in a hospital. My uncle is in the hospital right now receiving treatment for his acne. I don't know if you go to a hospital for that, but he broke a leg. He's in a hospital. Let's do that. I'm giving birth in a hospital, but you can also say, I'm at the hospital, but that would mean that you're just doing something there, that you're not a patient. I am visiting my uncle at the hospital because you're at the hospital, not as a patient receiving treatment. You're a guest visiting your uncle. In college, my brother volunteered at a local hospital. Again, he wasn't a patient. This is why we use at the hospital. The same goes for school, museum, library, or any other institution, and we also use it with events. I'm at this Lady Gaga concert. Okay, guys, I hope it wasn't super confusing for you. Again, if you want to make sure you remember all the prepositions, make sure to follow the video. And now, let's check your test. I guess you already know everything, but let's do it anyways. He lives Cowie 13 Long Street, because we give the full address. We give the number and the street address. I'm visiting my grandma at the hospital. Why? Because I'm not a patient. She's a patient. My grandma is in the hospital receiving treatment, and I'm visiting her at the hospital because I am not a patient. I like traveling by train. You can also say, I love traveling by train, but this is another topic for another video. Here, because we remember that we can stand up on the train, we use on. I like to travel by train. The next set of rules is regarding all versus all of. So we use all of when we have pronouns. Pronouns are us, they, them, me, you. Those are all pronouns. So we say, all of us are going to Malibu next week. All of them have completed their TOEFL test. So whenever it's a pronoun, we have all of. However, in all other cases, we have all. All the people are forced to stay at home. All the students have to wear masks. All the children need to stay at home. All the gods, all the heavens. The next section, in versus on versus at, when we're talking about time. So, when we talk about general measurements like, I'll be there in 2 minutes. I'll see you in 2 days. We're going to travel abroad in 2 months. So, this in is used with general measurements. I'll be there in 20 minutes. However, when we have a specific date and time, we use on and at. I will see you on Monday at 12 p.m. The classes start on September 21st. I'll go now. If we'll see you on Friday. And remember that in is also used with a year. I was born in 1990. He will come back in 2025. That was in 1994. Beside versus besides. So, beside is a preposition that means nearby. We were camping beside the river. We were camping on the shore, right? We're really close to the river and we're camping there beside the white chickens. Besides, as an adverb and preposition means in addition to. Besides, we need your support in this venture. So, this is something you would start your sentence with. Besides 2 suitcases, I'm taking 3 boxes with me. So it means in addition to my boxes, I'm taking my suitcases. You mean besides my marriage, among versus between. Among is used when you have a group of objects or people, usually 3 or more. She's very popular among her classmates. She's a very popular girl, right? I can choose among all your t-shirts. You have like 30 in your closet. Oh my God. Among our homes. Between is when you have 2 objects. I can't decide between going to the cinema and staying at home. On versus upon. They're actually interchangeable. You can use both. But upon is really formal and old-fashioned. Remember this. Once upon a time, there was this little girl who lived in the forest, blah, blah, blah. All the fairy tales will start like that. Put your book on a table. we would usually just use on. In this context, to versus then. There are several words that can only be followed by to, and these words are senior, junior, prefer, prior, superior, inferior, preferable. He is senior to me in service, right? We're using to. I prefer coffee to tea. I like coffee more. He is superior to me in terms of grades, which means he's higher than me. Is Matthew superior to me? So with these, we use to. In other cases, we use than. He's better than me. She's more beautiful than me, etc. You're no better than he. In versus into. We use in when we have a person, an animal, or an object located in a location. I was sitting in the classroom. He was in the house when the policeman came here. He is in your office. We use into in the sense of coming towards something. He came into my office. So he was kind of entering a closed space, and he was moving toward me. So he came into my office, came into the store. Agree with versus agree to. Agree with is used for agreement with a person. I agree with you. We need to practice English daily. I agree with our president that we need to support our economy. I agree with Dennis. Agree to is used for agreement to a plan, proposal, or idea. I agree to your proposal. Let's start a company together. I agree to your idea. To share this video with all of my friends, you'll agree to anything. For versus since. I think this pair of prepositions can be quite confusing. For measures a period of time, while since refers to the start date or period of time. For start date. I've been vlogging for 9 years already. Period of time. I've been vlogging since 2014, since start date. I've been vlogging since 2014. Here's a great example for you to practice. I've been following English channel since 2022, right? So let me know in comments when you first started watching me and why. What was the video that caught your attention and made you subscribe? This will be very useful for my future videos because I want to make sure I produce more content that helps you become better in English. Please comment below, and thank you for doing this, and thank you for practicing your English in the comments. Now we're going to transition to the next part of this video and continue talking about prepositions. Hello, everyone. In this lesson, we're going to look at some commonly confused prepositions and conjunctions to test how well you know them. I prepared a little test based on the Barbie movie. If you haven't seen the movie yet, don't worry. You can still take the test. Keep track of your answers. If you finish the test without any mistakes, write winner in the comments below. That way, we'll know that this topic is easy for you. If you make some mistakes, let us know how many questions you got wrong. Let's get started. Question 1. Barbie and Ken have known each other, Chatralta, many years. You have 5 seconds to answer the question. Feel free to pause the video if you need more time to think. The right answer is B. Barbie and Ken have known each other for many years. Now, why can't I say during many years or while many years? We use during to show when something happened. It is always followed by a noun. For example, during the party, Barbie didn't pay attention to Ken. During the trip to the real world, Ken learns a lot about patriarchy. We use for to show how long something happens. We use the time period after for 5 minutes, for 6 months, for 10 years, for many years. We cannot say for the party unless you want to say that you prepared a gorgeous dress for the party. But that's a completely different story. Barbie and Ken have known each other for many years. How long? So that's the right answer. Finally, while is a conjunction. It's usually followed by the subject and the verb. It can be used to show that two things are happening at the same time. Barbie was trying to find the child playing with her in the real world, while Ken was learning about patriarchy and horses. The two actions happened at the same time, while can also be used to indicate contrast. Ken likes Barbie, while Barbie doesn't like Ken. The next pair that is commonly confused is by versus until. Question 2. Until Barbie has to finish her project by Dessau Sunday. You have 5 seconds to think it over. What do you think the right answer is? Barbie has to finish her project by Sunday. We use by to talk about deadlines. Imagine that you mark a day on your calendar and have to complete something before that day. That's a deadline. Because it's a deadline, you'll often see words like have to, should, need, and must in such sentences. For example, Barbie and Ken must get to the real world by noon. They must do it before that time. Barbie should find the girl who's playing with her, by the end of the month, by noon, by the end of the month, by Friday, by August, by 4 p.m., by the end of the week. All these are examples of deadlines. Now, when talking about until, imagine a lion. Why? Because it describes a period of time. For example, the party lasts until 11 p.m. It probably starts at some time before then, let's say 5 p.m., and then it lasts until 11 p.m. So, we're talking about a time period. Compare these two sentences. Cinderella had to leave the ball by midnight. This is her deadline. We don't care about all the other time she could have spent at the ball dancing with the prince. Now, if I say Cinderella could stay at the ball until midnight, I'm interested in the time period from the moment she got there until midnight. So, until is used to state how long an event takes place or a situation continues. Till means the same as until but is more casual. In formal writing, when you're writing an essay or a letter, you'll usually use until. People usually use till instead of until in casual conversation. For example, if Ken was to invite Barbie out on a date, he could say, "Let's hang out at Starbucks till the movie starts." No rush. Test another pair of similar words, across and through. Barbie ran chosh the street to get to the other side. Well, that one is getting more challenging. The correct answer is C. Barbie ran across the street to get to the other side. To understand these prepositions, let's look at the pictures. We use across to show that we move from one side to another. We can move across the road, across the bridge, across the river, across the country, and so on. We use through to indicate that we move from one end or side of something to the other in the process. We can be surrounded by something or be in it. For example, I was walking through the forest when I heard a strange noise. I was in the forest, and I was surrounded by the trees. You can walk through the forest, run through the fog, crawl through the bushes, drive through the city. You'll be surrounded by buildings. You can also walk through the door. For a second, you'll be inside the frame or look through the window. Finally, over is used when we move at a higher level than something else. I walk over the hill every day. The hill is higher than the ground, so I use over. I can also jump over the fence or fly over the mountains. Question 4. There is a scene in the movie when Barbie is sitting on a bench with an old woman. Barbie, who is feeling fragile after being brutally roasted by a teenage girl, turns to the old woman and says, "You're beautiful." And the woman replies, "I know." So, what's the preposition we are going to use here? Well, actually, two options are correct. We can say, Barbie is sitting on a bench next to an old lady, and Barbie was sitting on a bench beside an old lady. We cannot say besides an old lady, though. Beside and next to mean pretty much the same and are used to indicate that something is located very close or at the side of something else. It's easy to remember. Besides, by the side of. You can say, sit next to or beside a person, or next to or beside their bed. Beside is a little more formal, so in everyday English, we'll usually use next to. So, if I were telling you about the Barbie movie, I'd probably say, Barbie was sitting on a bench next to an old lady. But if I were reading classics like J.A., for example, I'd see something like, she was sitting beside him. In this context, both beside and next to are prepositions. Besides can be a preposition or a linking adverb. As a preposition, it means apart from or in addition to. For example, besides Barbie and Ken, I can have other interests. I mean, interests in addition to Barbie and horses. When we use besides as a linking adverb, we usually want to add more information or give another reason for something. Let's go home. Home. The movie is stupid. Besides, I haven't eaten since breakfast, so I'm hungry. Question 5. Ken walked into the room and announced that it was his Mojo Dojo Casa house. This one is easy. The right option is B, into. Ken walked into the room. Into indicates movement towards the inside, while onto indicates movement towards the top of something. How to remember these prepositions of movement faster? Break them into two parts. Into is a preposition that describes the direction of movement. In means inside, so into means towards the inside. Onto is on plus to. To is a preposition that describes the direction of movement, while on means on top of something. So onto is the movement towards the top of something. Compare. Ken walked into the room, movement towards the inside. The cat jumped onto the table, movement towards the top of the table. Speaking of toward and towards, what's the difference? Would you say, Barbie is moving toward her house or towards her house? Actually, both are correct. But toward is more common in American English, and towards is more common in British English. However, you can pretty much use them interchangeably. You'll still hear a lot of Americans saying both. For example, she walked toward the park. He ran towards the station. That is all for today. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to write winner in the comments if you got all the prepositions right. If you made a mistake, let us know how many questions you got right. For more practice, think of sample sentences using the prepositions that were challenging for you. Back to Ariel. Let's do a quick quiz. I'm going to read 3 sentences and you're going to write down the prepositions. At the end of the video, I'll give you the right answers. We're planning to visit the museum Wednesday afternoon. By the way, let me know if you watch my shorts on this channel. I always do this, and people laugh a lot. The surprise twist at the end of the movie was completely unexpected. Question 6. Since we're marking a period of time, we're not talking about the result. We're talking about a particular part of that movie, at the end of the movie. Want to go on a walk tomorrow morning? No preposition needed. I can't, but I can on Sunday morning, though. I hope you wrote down your answers because we're going to check them at the end of this video. First things first. Let's talk about mornings, afternoons, evenings, and nights. The thing is, sometimes we don't even use prepositions. This morning, this afternoon, this evening. No preposition needed. I missed you this morning. I was executed this afternoon. But in other cases, we should use in. For example, I prefer showering in the morning. In the morning. See you in the morning. The same goes for afternoon and evening. We'll have lunch on our terrace in the afternoon and then leave. We usually watch a movie in the evening. So for morning, afternoon, and evening, we use in, especially in the afternoon. Now, what about night? Let's look at the example. I can't sleep at night. You're tempted to say in the night because it's in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. Well, night is an exception. Welcome to learning English. There are always exceptions. I can't sleep at night. The reason for that is that night refers to a continuous period of time, while morning, evening, and afternoon refer to parts of the day. Supposed to be at night. Now, there are cases when you can say in the night, but these cases are very specific when you're referring to a particular night. Let's look at the examples. I was awake in the night, thinking about all the things that had happened. So basically, we're referring to a particular night. In the night, I woke up in the middle of the night with a terrible headache. So, in the night usually refers to a particular night. At night refers to any night and is more commonly used. Now, on to the next case. We use on when talking about days of the week. On Wednesday, on Monday, on Thursday and Friday, on Saturday, on Sunday. Okay, we start on Monday. See you in church on Sunday. But what about Thursday morning? Because we just talked about mornings and we used in. It's on Thursday morning, on Friday evening, on Wednesday night. So whenever we have a day of the week, we use on. Now, what about the weekend? It's on the weekend, though sometimes you can hear people say at the weekend. That is more British. Americans would say on the weekend. I like to relax on the weekend and spend time with my family on the weekend. I did think you're forced to go there on the weekend. Now, funny exception. Another thing that you should remember. We can say on Sundays, but there is a thing in English where you can just omit the preposition. You can say, I do my groceries Sundays. Do you usually go out Fridays? Or, they have meetings Tuesdays and Thursdays. So you can just omit the preposition when you're talking about plural days of the week. Quick disclaimer. This is a conversational thing. I wouldn't do this on your exam, but sometimes you will hear native speakers do that. So just keep that in mind. And when in doubt, just use on. There is nothing wrong with saying, we have meetings on Tuesdays and Thursdays, just for you to know, right? Because there are so many things native speakers would say in a different way depending on where they are, where they come from, their level of education, their occupation. There are so many nuances, and I just want you to know this one. Is it at the beginning, Or is it in the beginning? Let's talk about it. We use at the beginning or at the start to indicate a starting point, and normally we would have of in the same sentence. Let's look at a couple of examples. At the beginning of the meeting, I'll ask everyone for ideas. She took off running at the start of the race. Let's consider your needs at the beginning of the summit. Now, we use in the beginning when we want to contrast two situations at different times. In the beginning, I struggled to learn how to play the guitar, but with practice, I became quite good at it, right? We contrasted 2 points in time, in the beginning and later in the process. I was fine in the beginning. Now, at the end marks the point in time when something finishes, and when we want to show that, we say, at the end. We're almost at the end of the book, but I still don't know what's going on. At the end of his speech, he thanked everyone for coming. At the end of the month. Now, we use in the end when we want to talk about things that happened after a long time or as a result of something. Let's look at an example. In the end, we decided to buy a cheaper car, right? So we have this process of choosing the car, and in the end of that process, we decided to buy a cheaper car. See the difference? At the end focuses on the point in time. In the end focuses on the result that happened after a long time. You've been thinking about it, debating, weighing options, and in the end, you decided to go for something. In the end, we always win. Now let's check your answers. Right? You took a test at the beginning of this video, right? We're planning to visit the museum on Wednesday afternoon. Right. Days of the week. The surprise twist at the end of the movie was completely unexpected, right? Because we're marking a period of time. We're not talking about the result. We're talking about a particular part of that movie, at the end of the movie. Question 6. Want to go on a walk tomorrow morning? No preposition needed. I can't. I can on Sunday morning, though, because we have our day of the week. And there you have it, guys. I really hope this video has given you a better understanding of the nuances of English prepositions. If you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more. Keep exploring and keep learning. Until next time, bye.